Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Southeast Termite and Pest Control. When the weather starts to turn, ladybugs, box elder bugs, stink bugs, they start looking for ways to enter your nice warm house. You can keep them out. Do what I do. Call Southeast Termite and Pest Control. Take advantage of their fall invader treatment. It has always worked for me. I used to get ladybugs by the billion, and then come spring, all their little offspring would be around, and I'd have to walk around killing the little things. Let Southeast Termite and Pest Control kill them before you have to. They can handle it. Give them a shout this week. Visit them at southeasttermite.com. All right, let's welcome in the next two members of our panel. Right here, VFL Will Overstreet back with us. Appreciate you joining us.
Glad to be here.
VFL Marlon Walls right here. Appreciate you joining us. And for those just tuning in, that is Justin Hamilton, former D1 player at Virginia Tech and also former defensive coordinator at Virginia Tech. Wanted to talk about Josh Heupel's offense and what it might do to a defense. You see right here, Josh Heupel's teams as head coach and offensive coordinator. That's their national rank in total offense, that's yardage, and total defense, that's yardage allowed. Basically, if you go down through the numbers, his average offense is number 5 in the country in terms of total yards, and it's high in points also. Number 92 in defense, and you're talking about 125, 130 schools, so not great on the defensive front. Justin, I'll just start with you and ask, with this kind of up-tempo system, the numbers suggest it is very, very difficult to have a good defense with that offense. Is that the case? Can you muster a good defense with that offense, and how can you do it?
I think those numbers definitely don't lie. That is difficult, and I just learned that this morning. I think you really have to redefine your definition of good defense. If you're going to say good defense, because it's so difficult to play that many snaps. Obviously, with the offense moving the ball and scoring points like they do, you love that. But how rapidly your possessions take place on defense, that takes a toll. I think the first thing you have to have is quality depth. You've got to be able to rotate as many people as you can to keep them fresh. I think one thing people don't talk a lot about is sometimes your better players are covering punts. So fourth down for the offense is play one of defense for them. A lot of times those same players or other players on defense are on punt return units or kickoff coverage units, and that takes a toll. But to stop or to limit offenses whenever you're coordinating for your own team, their offense and their style of play, I think obviously 3 and outs are vital, but if a drive extends, then you've got to try to force field goal attempts in the red zone. I think that's the best you can ask for. And at the end of the day, if you give up a few plays, you have the confidence on the sideline. You want to get it cleaned up, but you have the confidence to say our offense is probably going to get more points for us, so just keep playing.
Sounds like a bend, don't break defense.
As a former defender, you hate that term.
Yeah. And I tell you, that's one of the things we argued when Heupel first was hired. And one of the earlier shows we did where you put up the statistics from the defense standpoint of how many plays a defense is playing versus in a Heupel's offense. It's just difficult, man. And like you just heard Justin say, you got to be able to roll bodies in. But can you trust those bodies, coverage-wise, alignment and assignment-wise, to be productive? Obviously, a guy can't go play 100 snaps on defense. Yeah. So that means you've got a backup and probably another backup. And the point is, can you trust that guy on the field in the system-wise? Because usually, and Justin can probably point to this, 1 to 2 is usually a huge drop-off. And so I think those are one of the things that's concerning when you see those numbers of offense versus defense in Heupel's tenure.
Well, especially now when you're trying to rebuild, because you had not only did you have the coaching change where everybody left, but it's just the natural. You've had 2 classes, basically a class and a half of your own guys coming in here. So the guys you have brought in, very young at this point.
Yeah, and you can take another stat, too, that we had in the NFL, which is the team that had better defenses, their offenses had 1 time of possession. If you were top 5 in time of possession, your defense was probably top 10. So there, whether which one is the causality of that or not, but your offense having the ball more and winning that, and obviously in Heupel, he's going to score a lot of points, but you're not going to win time of possession. So your defense is going to be out there longer. I think the other thing is I always looked at it like this: when you had a 3-4 defense, and I'll use this as a comparison. The good 3-4 defenses had a Pro Bowler at defensive tackle, a Pro Bowler outside rusher, and a Pro Bowler free safety, strong safety. I think in this kind of defense, when you know you're going to be in these kinds of games, red zone's important. limiting into the field goals. So what of the defensive players do I absolutely have to go out and win in the recruiting battle for and go, I've got to get 2 pass rushers that are elite, and I got to get these 2 other positions. Everybody else, I got to figure out how to mix and match because you're not going to get great at all those positions. So I think it's about figuring out what's the mix of kind of players and going, I have got to get the top players at least in these 2 positions to be competitive out there at any time.
Justin, for Tennessee right now, reinforcements won't be arriving until next year. You've got a secondary that has a lot of transfers, has a lot of walk-ons out there. It's not great right now in the secondary. Unfortunately, you don't have a pass rush. We started this argument, then it looked bad for you guys after the Pitt game. Now it's looking good again. But the pass rush, you don't have guys in your front 4 who are automatic get to the court. You're having to blitz a lot. So my question, as a former defensive coordinator and as a guy who used to coach secondary a lot, if you don't have a great secondary and you don't have a tremendous pass rush, how is Tim Banks supposed to mask that? That seems awfully difficult to mask.
It is difficult. It is very difficult. And the biggest problem or the biggest reason for the difficulty is you've got to play. There's nowhere to turn. Next year's a ways away. And I think for starters, it goes back to that bend but don't break type of mentality where you want to try to limit explosive plays. But more than anything, to me, it's stop the run so that you get in obvious passing situations, and whether it be with your pressures, if you can get home before the routes can get to the sticks, or if in those situations you can drop extra coverage players or you can disguise your coverage. And then once again, it goes back to as long as we can limit their points, they may get yards, they may move the chains. As long as we can limit their points, if our offense gets back on the field, we count on them to give us that boost. But I think, as much as anything, it comes down to you just really have to try to, with coverages that you play in the passing game, you've got to try to manipulate the ball being thrown to areas of the field where your players have a chance to go make plays. And if you limit that, taking away deep throws, forcing short throws, you've got to drive, rally, make tackles, try to force turnovers. And if you want to allow quarterbacks to take deep shots, then you've got to live with those 50-50 odds.
Normally, I spoke to you before the show, normally another way to try and guard against that is to run the ball and keep possession, which isn't an option with this Josh Heupel offense.
I didn't even mention that because I knew it wasn't an option.
That doesn't fit. All right, when we come back, from Tua Tagovailoa in the NFL to Cedric Tillman with the process he's having done on his ankle. Injuries been in the news this week. Who do players listen to when it comes to injuries? And this isn't a Tennessee thing. This isn't just a college thing or an NFL thing. But we have some guys here, all former Division I football players. One guy played in the NFL. One guy coached in the ACC. One guy coached high school. I'm going to ask these guys in terms of that injury situation, who's looking out for the players? We'll debate this for a couple of segments. Come on back on The Sports Source.